Room fell silent as the final slide disappeared from the screen. Billionaire CEO Grayson Wolf, razor sharp in a charcoal Tom Ford suit, stood at the head of the long glass table, arms crossed and mind elsewhere. He had conquered markets, outsmarted rivals, and turned Wolf Enterprises into a tech empire. But he'd never been able to shake her. The mysterious woman from that one enchanted night, 6 years ago, one charity gala, one masquerade ball, one unforgettable connection. No name, no number. Just a kiss that made time freeze, and a pair of glass slippers left behind in the chaos of morning. Grayson had searched half-heartedly at first, then obsessively. But she had vanished, as if swallowed by the very dream she embodied. And just when he thought he had finally buried the ghost of that night, a high-pitched laugh echoed from outside his office window down in the corporate plaza, where children were gathered for Wolf Foundation's annual Kids' Day. He turned, irritated at the distraction, and then he saw her. A little girl, no more than 5 or 6, big hazel eyes, a dimple on her left cheek, and hair, dark, curly, unruly, just like his own at that age. But it wasn't just her looks, it was what she wore. A tiny charm bracelet glinted on her wrist. One charm, a miniature glass slipper. His pulse slammed. His assistant knocked, announcing his next meeting, but Grayson didn't hear a word. Because as the girl ran toward the carousel, a woman rushed after her, calling her name. He froze. That voice, that face, even from a distance, it was her. The Cinderella who disappeared 6 years ago. And now she had a daughter. His daughter? Grayson stormed out of the boardroom without explanation, leaving a dozen stunned executives in his wake. "Sir?" his assistant called after him. "Where are you?" But he was already in the elevator, pounding the button for the ground floor. He barely breathed the entire way down, a strange mix of adrenaline and something dangerously close to hope curling in his gut. It can't be. It can't be her. It's impossible. And yet, as the elevator doors opened into the lobby, he didn't hesitate. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Wolf Tower, he spotted them again. The girl skipping circles near the carousel, and the woman crouching down to tie the laces on the girl's little white sneakers. Grayson stepped out into the sunlit plaza, his heartbeat echoing like a war drum in his chest. The woman straightened up, and their eyes met. Time stopped. She gasped, visibly, audibly, like the wind had been punched from her lungs. Her lips parted. Her hands instinctively grabbed the little girl and pulled her gently to her side. She was as stunning as he remembered, if not more. The years had added depth to her eyes and grace to her posture, but her presence, her aura, it was undeniable. "Grayson," she whispered, barely audible over the sound of carousel music and children's laughter. He took a cautious step forward. "You remember me," he said softly, as if still not trusting the reality in front of him. She blinked once, twice, then nodded. Her voice trembled. "I wasn't sure if you would—" He let out a breath, half relief, half something else. "You vanished. You didn't look. I did. For months. No name, no number. You were gone." Silence stretched between them, taut and electric. The little girl, sensing the tension, looked up and frowned. "Mommy," she asked innocently, "who is this man?" Neither adult moved. Grayson's gaze dropped to the child again. She was clutching a small, pink plush rabbit. A soft breeze caught her curls, and for a fleeting second, he saw himself in her completely. The shape of her nose, the stubborn lift of her chin. He swallowed. "What's her name?" he asked, his voice low, careful, afraid of the answer. The woman hesitated. Then quietly she said, "Her name is Ella." The world tilted. Ella. Glass slipper charm. 6 years. He blinked, heart stammering. "Is she—" he began. But the woman shook her head, eyes suddenly guarded. "Don't do this here, Grayson. Not now, please." He stepped back slightly, respecting the boundary, but his eyes never left Ella. "I just need to know." She gave a tight smile. Then we talk. Tonight. The sun was dipping low over Manhattan by the time Grayson arrived at the small brownstone on the Upper West Side. It was worlds apart from the penthouse views and polished marble floors of his world. But somehow, it felt more real. He'd barely knocked before the door opened. She stood there in soft jeans and a knit sweater, hair tied back, no makeup, and yet she looked like the most beautiful heartbreak he'd ever seen. "Come in," she said quietly. Inside, the home was modest but warm, walls decorated with crayon drawings, a faint smell of vanilla and lavender in the air. Grayson stepped in, his presence too large for the narrow hallway, his chest tight. "I put Ella to bed early," she said, leading him into a small living room. "She thinks you're someone I used to know." He didn't sit. Couldn't. "You owe me the truth, Clara." There it was, her name, Clara Bennett. He'd finally learned it, 6 years too late. She exhaled, folding her arms protectively. "I know." A pause. Silence pressing between them, like fog. Grayson spoke first. "Is she mine?" Her eyes shimmered. "You really want to know?" "I need to know." Clara turned away for a moment, as though steadying herself against the weight of the memory. When she faced him again, her voice broke. "I found out 2 weeks after the gala. I was going to call, but then I saw you on the cover of Forbes, engaged to some heiress, climbing the ladder like nothing happened." Grayson blinked. "That engagement ended 3 months later. You think I wouldn't have walked away if I knew?" She looked at him, really looked, and whispered, "I didn't want to be your charity case, Grayson. I didn't want my daughter to be someone you tolerated. I needed to protect her." He stepped forward, voice cracking. "You denied me 6 years of her life. You have no idea what I've lost. And you have no idea what I survived," she said sharply. "Morning sickness on subway trains, 2 jobs while nursing, watching her sleep, wondering how to tell her someday why she doesn't have a father." His breath caught. Her voice softened. "I didn't know if you'd care, or if you'd destroy us." He sat down at last, like his knees had given out. "She's mine," he whispered. Clara nodded, tears spilling. "Yes." A long silence. Then he asked, "Can I see her? Just for a moment?" Clara hesitated, then disappeared down the hallway. A minute later she returned, holding the hand of a sleepy little girl in her unicorn pajamas. Ella blinked up at him, her tiny voice muffled by sleep. "Hi," she said. "You're the man from the park." Grayson's heart clenched. He knelt to her level. "Hi, Ella. I'm a friend of your mommy's." She looked at him seriously, then tilted her head. "You have eyes like mine." Clara smiled gently from behind her. Grayson swallowed hard. "I think," he whispered, "we have a lot in common." The night was quiet after Ella fell back asleep. Clara sat on the edge of the worn sofa, hands folded in her lap. Grayson remained across from her, his elbows on his knees, head in his hands like he'd just come out of a storm. In many ways he had. "I missed her first words," he said, voice hoarse. "Her first steps, her birthdays. I missed it all." Clara's voice was soft but steady. "I didn't know how to let you in, without falling apart." He lifted his head, eyes red but dry. "You still should have told me. I would have wanted her. I would have wanted you." She looked away. The silence between them cracked with all the things they never said, all the versions of their life that could have been. "You don't know what it's like to raise a child alone, Grayson. Every scraped knee, every sleepless night, every parent-teacher conference pretending to be both parents at once." He swallowed. "Then let me try now. Let me make up for it." She looked at him, and for the first time there was no fire in her eyes, just sadness. "I don't need a check. I don't need a rescue. But she deserves a father, and you deserve the chance." His chest tightened. "What do I need to do?" She hesitated. "Be consistent. Be patient. Be here." Grayson leaned back, overwhelmed by the weight of the second chance he hadn't expected. but couldn't walk away from. Clara, I never stopped thinking about you. You weren't just a fantasy or a one-night story. I looked for you, her voice faltered, and I kept disappearing. A long pause. Then she asked, almost afraid of the answer, "Why didn't you ever move on?" He exhaled slowly. "Because no one ever made me feel like you did. Not before, not after." Clara blinked, visibly shaken. "That night, you didn't even know my name. But I knew your soul," he said, "and I've been chasing it ever since." She looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time in 6 years let the tears fall freely. And Grayson, billionaire, CEO, man who once thought he had everything, now realized he had nothing. Until now. He leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "I want to know her. I want to be there for every school play, every nightmare, every lost tooth. And I want to know you, Clara, not just as the woman who vanished, but the woman who survived, who raised our daughter into something beautiful." Clara bit her lip, shaking. "I don't know how to do this." "We'll learn together," he said. They sat like that for a while, two broken hearts beginning to mend in the quiet of a New York apartment. Outside, the city pulsed like always. But inside, something new was being born. Not just forgiveness, not just hope, but family. The next morning, Grayson was back, earlier than expected. Clara opened the door still in her robe, surprised to see him holding 2 paper coffee cups and a small pink bakery box. "I wasn't sure if you'd let me in again," he said almost shyly, "so I came bearing peace offerings. Chocolate croissants." Clara raised a brow. "Ella loves those." He smiled. "I know, I asked your neighbor." A pause stretched between them, soft and full of unsaid things. She stepped aside. "Come in." Ella was still asleep, her unicorn nightlight casting a gentle glow in the hall. Grayson looked around the apartment like he was seeing it for the first time. The drawings taped to the fridge, the ballet shoes by the door, the crumpled storybook on the couch. "This is a good home," he said. "You've done everything on your own." Clara poured them both coffee and took a seat. "I did what I had to. I wasn't going to let her grow up wondering if she was a mistake." He flinched, hard. "She wasn't. She isn't. Neither were you." Clara looked at him, pain flickering in her eyes. "Do you know how many times I wanted to call you? Especially when she got sick that winter. 103-degree fever. I sat on the bathroom floor with her in my lap, rocking her, and all I could think was, God, I can't do this alone anymore." But I still didn't pick up the phone. "Why?" Her voice broke. "Because I was afraid of what you'd say. Afraid you'd tell me I was wrong, that you didn't want her, or me." Grayson leaned forward, voice low. "I would have been angry, maybe even scared. But I never would have walked away from you." She nodded, quietly weeping now. "I believe you. I just wasn't brave enough to risk it." Grayson reached out across the table. He didn't touch her, just offered his hand, palm up, waiting. She stared at it for a long moment before placing hers in his. And for the first time in 6 years, she let herself rest there. Just for a moment. Just to see what it felt like to not carry everything alone. That afternoon, Grayson asked if he could pick Ella up from preschool. Clara hesitated. "She's shy around strangers. She might not." "She knows me," he said softly, "even if she doesn't understand why yet." Clara finally nodded, giving him the address and a pink backpack with unicorn patches. "I'll be 2 blocks away," she added, "in case anything goes wrong." He looked her in the eyes. "Nothing will go wrong." At 3:15 p.m., Ella burst out of the building's double doors in a flurry of giggles and glitter-glued construction paper. She stopped short when she saw Grayson. "You came," she said, surprised. Grayson knelt down and opened his arms instinctively. And to his shock, she ran into them. Tiny arms looped around his neck. A scent of crayons and strawberry shampoo filled the air. "I made you something," she said, digging into her backpack. "It's a drawing." She handed him a folded paper. He opened it. 3 stick figures. A little girl in the middle, holding hands with a woman on one side, and a man with messy hair and a suit on the other. Grayson's eyes welled. "Is this me?" Ella grinned. "It's our family." He choked back a sound, half laugh, half sob. "Yeah," he whispered. "It is." Grayson hadn't meant to make headlines. But when a billionaire CEO is seen holding hands with a mystery child outside a Manhattan preschool, the press notices. By morning, a grainy photo was plastered on page 6. The headline read, "Tech Titan's Secret Daughter? Grayson Wolf spotted with look-alike child sources, say romance with unknown woman brewing." Clara found it first, on her cracked phone screen as she poured cereal for Ella. Her breath caught in her throat. Her hands trembled. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Ella asked. "Nothing, baby," Clara replied with a forced smile. "Go put your shoes on, okay?" She didn't call Grayson. She didn't have to. He was already at her door 10 minutes later, breathless, hair wind-tousled, like he'd run the last block. "I didn't plan this," he said. "I swear to you, I didn't say a word." Clara showed him the screen. Her voice was cold. "Your world found us anyway." Grayson stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. "I'll call my PR team. They'll kill the story." "And then what?" she asked, crossing her arms. "What happens when people start digging? When reporters come to her school? When she's old enough to read what they write?" Grayson's voice cracked. "I'll protect her." "You can't protect her from everything. This," she gestured between them, "was supposed to be quiet, safe for her." He softened. "She deserves to be known, loved, not hidden like a mistake." Clara's eyes glistened. "So do I. But I know your world, Grayson. It eats people like me alive." He closed the space between them, gently touching her hand. "Then let me build a space where you don't have to be afraid anymore." She pulled away, not unkindly. "I want to believe you, but I need more than words. I need time." That night, Grayson sat alone in his penthouse for the first time in days. He stared at the newspaper on his coffee table, heart heavy with the weight of a love rediscovered too late and a daughter he couldn't bear to lose again. His phone buzzed, a message from his board chairman. "You're trending. Call me." Then another, from his former fiancée, Juliet. "I always knew you had secrets. Guess I was right." And finally, from Clara. "She asked if you're her daddy tonight. I told her you're someone very special." "I'm scared, Grayson, but I'm not shutting the door, not yet." He stared at the message for a long time, then replied, "Neither am I." Meanwhile, across town, Clara watched Ella sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling, a small smile still on her lips. She brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead and whispered, "Maybe, just maybe, we're allowed to have miracles too." 2 days passed. Peaceful, quiet days filled with playground visits, puzzles on Clara's living room floor, and Grayson learning how to braid his daughter's wild curls with comically clumsy hands. It was fragile, beautiful, and terrifying. But even the gentlest tides eventually shift. It was a rainy Wednesday afternoon when Ella asked the question that Clara had long feared. They were building a pillow fort in the living room when Ella looked up at her mother and asked, "Mommy, why don't I have a daddy like the other kids?" Clara froze mid-cushion, her breath hitched. Her eyes found Grayson's across the room. He had stilled too, the blanket in his hands forgotten. Ella tilted her head. "Liam at school said all families have mommies and daddies, but I didn't have one until now." Clara sat slowly on the floor, legs folding beneath her. She had rehearsed this moment 100 different ways. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "do you remember the man who picked you up last week? The one who brought you the strawberry donuts?" Ella's face lit up. "Yes, I drew him again yesterday. He has crooked eyebrows like mine." Grayson let out a breath through a quiet, trembling smile. Clara nodded. "His name is Grayson, and he's someone very, very important." "Is he my daddy?" A silence fell over the room like a dropped curtain. Clara looked at her daughter's face. So small, so honest, and she couldn't lie to her anymore. Not when the truth was right there, kneeling across from them with glassy eyes and shaking hands. "Yes," she whispered. "He is." Ella blinked, processing. Grayson, unable to sit still a second longer, came closer. He knelt beside Clara and looked directly at the child who had changed his entire life in less than a week. "I didn't know about you until now," he said gently. "But if I had, I would have come running." Ella was quiet. Then she asked, "Did you love my mommy?" Clara's breath caught. Grayson didn't look away. "Yes, very much." Ella reached out, touching his face with small fingers. "Do you still love her?" Grayson turned to Clara, his heart in his throat. "I never stopped." Clara blinked back tears, looking down, because looking at him meant surrendering. Ella nodded like she just solved a puzzle. "Okay," she said. "Then can we all live together now?" Another adult spoke. Grayson took her hand and kissed her knuckles. "Maybe someday," he said, "if your mommy says yes." Clara looked away, her heart pounding. Ella smiled, satisfied. "Okay, can I have more apple juice?" And just like that, the moment passed, but the tremor it left behind would linger in them both. Later that night, after Ella had fallen asleep, Clara stood by the window with her arms wrapped around herself. "She deserves the truth," she said, "but I don't know how to explain what we were, or weren't." Grayson joined her, his voice low. "We were something. We are something. I feel it every time I look at you, and every time she smiles." She turned to him, eyes tired and full. "She's already falling in love with you, Grayson. If you leave again, it will shatter her." He stepped closer, his voice unwavering. "Then I won't leave." Clara shook her head. "You say that now, but your life is still waiting for you. Your company, your world, your name in lights. I'll burn it all down if it means keeping her. Keeping you." Clara looked at him, her walls trembling, her heart torn between fear and longing. "You really mean that?" "I've never meant anything more." Outside, the city lights flickered against the glass. Inside, two hearts beat like they were finding rhythm again, for the first time in 6 years. It happened on a Saturday. The sun was warm, the breeze soft, and Grayson had just taught Ella how to skip rocks at the Central Park pond. Her delighted squeals still echoed in Clara's ears as they strolled back to the brownstone. Ella balanced between them, holding both her hands, swinging with each step. For the first time in a long time, Clara wasn't thinking about survival. She was thinking about Sundays, about laughter, about a life with Grayson, not without. But peace, Clara knew, was fragile. And hers shattered when she saw Juliet Hartley waiting on the front steps. Grayson froze. Clara's blood ran cold. Juliet, gorgeous, immaculately dressed and perfectly poised, rose to her feet, her expression unreadable beneath designer sunglasses. "Well," she said coolly, "this is new." Grayson immediately stepped in front of Clara and Ella. "What are you doing here?" Juliet slid her sunglasses into her handbag. "Your assistant said you'd gone dark. No calls, no meetings, no explanations. I thought maybe you'd had a breakdown." She glanced down at Ella. Her perfectly plucked eyebrows twitched. "But it seems you've just been busy." Clara's arms instinctively wrapped around Ella. "Let's go inside," Grayson said tightly. But Juliet's voice sliced through him. "So this is the child you've been hiding? The one in the tabloids?" She looked at Clara. "You must be the mother." Clara's face flushed with a quiet fury. "And you must be the ex-fiancé." Juliet gave a humorless smile. "He has a thing for secrets. You're not special." Grayson stepped between them. "Stop! You don't belong here." "Oh, but I do." Juliet's voice dropped. "You think the board won't care that their CEO lied about a child? You think the press won't twist this into a scandal? You're not just risking your image anymore, Grayson. You're risking the company." Clara's breath caught. Ella looked between the adults, sensing the tension. Mommy, what's happening? Grayson turned to Juliet, his voice ice. You will not use my daughter as leverage. Juliet's smile sharpened. Then stop hiding behind them and start thinking about consequences. She pivoted and walked away, her heels echoing against the pavement. Clara stood still, her fingers trembling against Ella's back. Inside, after Ella had gone to her room, Clara turned on Grayson. This is what I meant, she whispered, furious and scared. Your world doesn't knock, it kicks down doors. Grayson was already loosening his tie, pacing. I'll handle Juliet. She's just bitter and loud. It doesn't mean anything. She knows about Ella now. That changes everything. She'll tell the world. And when she does, you won't just be the golden CEO. You'll be the man who hit a child and nearly abandoned his board. Are you ready for that fallout? He stopped pacing. Yes, he said, his voice iron, if it means I get to be her father, and not just in secret. Clara's eyes welled. I don't want to lose you again, he whispered. You don't get to say that if you can't protect her from what's coming, she snapped. A pause. He walked over, taking her hands. I can't protect her from the world, Clara, but I can stand between her and the storm. I'll take the hit. I'll take all of them. Just let me stay. She looked at him, eyes searching. And for the first time in a long, long time, she nodded. It didn't take long. By Monday morning, Grayson's face was everywhere: television screens, tabloids, Twitter feeds. Grayson Wolf's hidden heir? CEO love child scandal sources. Confirmed daughter with unknown woman. Billionaire caught in secret family drama. Paparazzi staked out the brownstone. Reporters circled Wolf Enterprises headquarters. Clara couldn't walk Ella to school without cameras flashing from across the street. Grayson did damage control for 48 sleepless hours straight, but the damage was already done. Shareholders were panicking. Lawyers were whispering about contract clauses. The board demanded answers. And Juliet? She was behind it all. Clara saw it on a talk show. Juliet, seated with poise and false sympathy, claiming she'd found out just like everyone else. I loved him. I would have supported him, Juliet told the host, brushing a fake tear. But when someone hides something this big, you start to question who they really are. She smirked toward the camera, as if the knife she twisted hadn't been sharp enough. Clara turned off the TV and sat in silence. She felt sick. Ella was in her room, building towers with her Legos, oblivious for now. But that wouldn't last forever. The knock on the door came at 6:13 p.m. Grayson stood there in the rain, soaked through, his eyes hollow. They want me to resign. Clara felt the breath leave her. They said I broke trust, that this situation makes me unstable in the public eye. She stared at him. And what did you say? He dropped his briefcase. I told them to go to hell. Clara's heart twisted. You're giving up everything. I already gave it all up. I just didn't know it. His voice cracked. When I lost you, when I lost her, none of it ever filled the gap. He stepped forward. I've built a life from concrete and glass. Now I want one made of laughter and paper hearts and cinnamon toast at 7 a.m. I want the real thing. Clara looked at him, truly looked, and saw the cracks behind the suit. The boy he used to be, the man he was trying to become. I don't need a martyr, Grayson. I'm not dying for you, he said. I'm living for you. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she pulled him into the apartment, shut the door, and finally, after 6 years of silence, wrapped her arms around him. He held her like a man holding onto air after nearly drowning. Ella peeked from the hallway. Mommy, why is Daddy crying? Clara turned, her voice trembling. Because sometimes, even daddies need to be held too. Ella tiptoed over, curling into his side. Grayson pulled her close, one arm around each of them, his entire world now held in his arms. And for the first time in his life, Grayson Wolf didn't care if the empire fell. He had finally come home. The backlash from the press was still roaring when the anonymous email landed in Wolf Enterprises' legal inbox. Subject: Clara Bennett, is this who you're backing? Attachment: PDF. Case No. 18417, New Jersey Family Court, 2017. The message was short, brutal. You should know who your CEO's child is being raised by. She doesn't deserve the spotlight, neither does he. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a cover-up. Clara was in the kitchen making grilled cheese when her phone rang. It was Grayson's assistant. Miss Bennett, I think you should come down to the office. An hour later, Clara sat in a glass-walled conference room surrounded by silence thick enough to choke her. Grayson was already there, tense, jaw clenched, EAs unreadable. The file was on the table between them. Grayson didn't speak. Clara's heart sank the moment she saw the folder. I was hoping this would never come back, she whispered. Grayson finally met her eyes. What is it? Clara's voice was barely a breath. Ella's father. Before you, the man I was with right before the gala. Grayson stiffened. Clara swallowed hard. He was cruel, controlling, but I didn't see it at first. When I found out I was pregnant, he told me I had to choose. Him or the baby. She blinked fast as if holding back years. I chose Ella. He tried to drag me through court, said he'd fight for custody just to destroy me. I filed a restraining order. He vanished soon after. But the case is still there, public record. And now someone's using it. Grayson leaned forward, voice quiet but firm. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to see me as broken. I didn't want her to carry the weight of that pain. She's not his daughter. She's ours. Grayson's gaze was unreadable for a long moment. Then, do you still feel unsafe? Clara nodded. Sometimes, but never around you. Silence stretched. He slowly reached across the table and took her hand. I don't care what's in that file. I care about the woman who raised my daughter into the bravest little soul I've ever met. Clara's chin trembled. I thought it was behind me. It was, but now it's our burden, not just yours. He turned to his legal counsel, who stood quietly at the door. Bury this, legally and ethically. I don't want her dragged through mud for surviving. The lawyer nodded, but the damage was already done. Within 24 hours, gossip blogs started hinting at Clara Bennett's troubled history. Talk shows debated whether she was a stable partner for a high-profile figure. And Clara, strong, quiet, battle-scarred Clara, shut down. She stopped answering calls, skipped her job at the community center, kept Ella home from school. She was building walls again, not out of spite, but out of fear. Until one night, Grayson came over with a single photograph. It was from Ella's preschool art folder, a family drawing again. But this time, there were 4 figures. Clara looked at it, confused. Who's the 4th? Grayson smiled gently. I asked her that. She said it's the monster that used to scare Mommy, and that Daddy holds her hand now, so he can't come back. Clara pressed the drawing to her chest. She broke. Tears fell. Years of guilt, shame, loneliness collapsing all at once, and Grayson was there, holding her, not saving her, but standing beside her, unshaken. You're not what happened to you, he whispered into her hair, and neither is she. The invitation came with urgency and pressure. A live press conference, broadcast across every major network. The board was demanding transparency. The media was salivating. And the wolves were closing in. Everyone expected a carefully worded denial, a corporate PR stunt, a polished excuse, a distancing from her, from them. But Grayson Wolf had no intention of hiding anymore. That morning, Clara sat in her apartment, clutching Ella to her side on the couch, both of them staring at the television. Her hands were cold, her body stiff. I didn't want this, she whispered. Ella looked up. Is Daddy going to talk about us? Clara hesitated. I don't know. Ella's eyes shimmered with hope. I hope he says your name, Then the world will know you're special. Clara almost laughed, almost cried. 11:02 a.m., Wolf Enterprises headquarters. Dozens of cameras, hundreds of flashing lights. Grayson stepped up to the podium wearing a black suit with no tie, his face a careful blend of confidence and weariness. But his eyes held one thing only: resolve. He looked out over the press crowd and took a deep breath. I want to begin today by making something clear. This is not a damage control statement. He paused. This is a declaration. The room shifted, murmurs rising. Grayson continued. 6 years ago, I spent one night with someone who changed my life. I didn't know her name then. I didn't know her story, but I never forgot her. He gripped the podium tighter. And 2 weeks ago, I discovered that from that one night came a miracle. A daughter, a child I didn't know existed. A little girl with eyes like mine and a spirit 10 times stronger. A hush fell over the room. She is not a scandal. She is not a liability. She is my daughter. Her name is Ella Bennett Wolf, and she is the best thing I've ever created. Gasps echoed. Camera shutters exploded. And then, I want the world to know the name of her mother too, because I am not ashamed of her. I am in awe of her. She raised our daughter alone, with grace and grit and love that humbles me daily. His voice broke slightly, then recovered. Her name is Clara Bennett, and I love her. Clara's breath caught. Ella sat up straighter, eyes wide. He said it, she whispered. Grayson's voice steadied again. I'm not stepping down. I'm not stepping back. I'm stepping forward, toward the life I almost missed, toward the family I nearly lost. He looked into the cameras, directly into the homes of millions. If the cost of truth is reputation, so be it. If the cost of love is pride, I'll pay it. He stepped away from the podium. Silence reigned for 3 full seconds. Then the room erupted. But Grayson didn't stay for the questions. He turned and walked straight out. Straight into a waiting car. Straight across the city. Straight to them. Clara didn't answer the door when he knocked. She opened it and launched herself into his arms. No words. Just tears. Just hearts realigning. Ella giggled behind them, clapping. Grayson crouched and pulled her close, kissing her forehead. I said your name, he whispered. The whole world knows now. Ella grinned. Now they know I'm real. Clara whispered against his chest. So are we. It started with a fever. Just a low one, 101.3 degrees Fahrenheit, but Clara knew the signs. Ella's skin burned against her shoulder as she slept, her tiny breasts uneven, her once bright eyes dulled with exhaustion. It was just a cold, she hoped. Please let it just be a cold. By morning, it was 104.1. Grayson was already pacing the hallway when Clara came out of Ella's room. She's getting worse, Clara whispered. She's not responding. Grayson's face went pale. I'll call the car. No, Clara said, grabbing her purse. We're not waiting on town cars. We go now. The ER lights were harsh. The antiseptic air pressed into their lungs. Ella whimpered in Clara's arms while nurses took vitals, and Grayson, powerless, helpless, watched everything spiral beyond his control. I need to stay with her, Clara told the nurse. She doesn't do well with needles. She'll be okay, Mommy, Ella mumbled weakly. Just don't let go. I won't, Clara promised, her voice cracking. Grayson took a shaky step forward. Can I? He couldn't finish. Clara looked up, and in her eyes a flicker of trust. She nodded. Grayson sat beside the bed, brushing sweat-damp curls from his daughter's forehead. You're so brave, he whispered. You know that? Ella whimpered. My tummy hurts. Clara reached across and took his hand. Not because he needed strength, but because she did. Tests followed. Hours passed. Words like infection, spike, and possible complications floated around the sterile room like ghosts. And then Ella began to convulse. The machines screamed. Nurses rushed in. Clara sobbed, frozen at the foot of the bed. But Grayson moved. "Hey!" he barked at the nurse. "Her lips! Her lips are turning blue! She can't breathe!" He turned to Clara, grabbing her shoulders. "Clara, look at me. We have to let them work. She's going to fight, just like you." Clara collapsed into his arms, shaking violently. "I can't lose her," she choked. "Grayson, I can't." "You won't," he said through clenched teeth. "Not while I'm breathing." 6 hours later, the doctor came in. Calm, gentle. "She's responding to fluids now. We've stabilized her. It looks like a severe intestinal virus, not meningitis. She's still weak, but she's safe." Clara cried silently. Grayson sat beside Ella's bed, her tiny hand wrapped in his. She was sleeping, cheeks flushed but peaceful. "I was useless," he whispered. "No," Clara said softly. "You were exactly who she needed." He looked up at her. "I've closed billion-dollar deals, survived PR disasters, taken on ruthless competitors. But nothing scared me like that. Nothing." Clara sat beside him and leaned her head against his shoulder. "That's fatherhood," she said. "It's not always knowing what to do. It's staying anyway." He kissed her hair, emotion welling in his throat. "I didn't know love could hurt this much." She smiled gently. "That's how you know it's real." And there, under hospital lights and the steady rhythm of their daughter's breath, Clara and Grayson became something deeper than partners. They became parents. Ella was finally home. 2 days after her release from the hospital, she was back to her playful self. Crayons on the floor, cartoons humming in the background, hair in messy pigtails. The apartment was filled with soft music and the smell of cinnamon toast. Grayson was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes. Clara stood nearby, folding small socks and smiling as she watched father and daughter exchange playful banter. It felt normal, whole, safe, until the doorbell rang. A single, sharp chime. Clara's smile faltered. She wasn't expecting anyone. Neither was Grayson. He glanced at her. "You good?" She nodded and went to answer. The second the door opened, the color drained from her face. On the threshold stood a man in a dark gray coat. Tall, broad, cold eyes. Familiar eyes. His eyes. Her voice failed. "Clara," he said with a half smile. "Long time." Grayson appeared behind her a second later. He looked from Clara to the man and immediately stepped forward. "Can I help you?" The man didn't flinch. "I'm not here to cause trouble. Just wanted to see my daughter." The silence was absolute. Grayson looked at Clara, his entire body stiffening. What the hell is he talking about? The man stepped inside before anyone invited him. "She's mine, isn't she?" he said calmly. "Ella." Clara trembled. "You don't get to say her name." Grayson stepped between them. "Get out." "Or what?" The man smirked. "You'll have your lawyers handle it?" "I have rights. I never signed them away. And now that she's on national TV, suddenly I see a little girl with my face being claimed by a billionaire." Grayson's jaw clenched. Clara whispered, "You left us. You abandoned her." "No," the man snapped. "You hid her. You filed a restraining order, ran off, and changed her name." Grayson's fists were clenched now. Ella's voice came from the hallway. "Mommy?" The man's eyes flicked toward the sound. Clara moved fast, shutting the door behind her to block Ella's view. "You need to leave," she said through gritted teeth, "before I call the police." "You will hear from my lawyer," the man warned, stepping backward. "If she's my child, I want to know her. I want my share." Then he looked at Grayson. "And I want to know what it's like to be you, for once." And with that, he turned and left. The silence in the room was suffocating. Grayson stared at the closed door. Clara stood still, shaken. "I didn't know he'd ever come back," she said in a low voice. "I thought he disappeared." "Who is he?" Clara swallowed hard. "Ella's biological father." Grayson's breath caught. Everything they'd built, every fragile bond, was suddenly teetering on the edge of collapse. The penthouse was quiet that night. Too quiet. Clara was asleep in the guest room with Ella curled against her, one small hand resting on her mother's chest. Peaceful, unaware, beautiful. Grayson sat alone on the balcony, staring at the city lights that never blinked, never broke down, never hesitated. Unlike him. Whiskey untouched. Phone ignored. All he could see was that man's face, the entitled smirk, the quiet threat. I want my share. Grayson felt sick. For the first time since becoming CEO, he felt powerless. Because this wasn't about business. This wasn't about mergers or media spin. This was about Ella. She isn't mine. She might never have been. But then another thought followed, quieter, deeper. She is mine in every way that matters. When Clara joined him outside, it was nearly 2 a.m. Her hair was messy, her eyes puffy, but she didn't say anything for a moment. She just sat beside him and took his hand. He didn't pull away. I should have told you, she whispered. I just couldn't bear to have that part of my life follow us here. Grayson stared straight ahead. Was it true? Did he leave you? She nodded. I was 2 months pregnant when he started drinking. 4 when he raised his voice. 6 when he hit me for the first time. The restraining order held him back, but I moved halfway across the country to be sure. Grayson's throat tightened. Did Ella ever ask? Clara swallowed. Not directly, but she knows someone's missing from the story, and I always told her she didn't need 2 people who shared her DNA. She just needed one who never left. He turned toward her, something raw breaking across his face. And now she has 2 who won't. Clara looked up. Grayson's voice was hoarse. I may not have created her, Clara, but I chose her, and I'll keep choosing her, every single day. Her breath hitched. I need to know this won't change us, she whispered. It changes everything, he said honestly, but not in the way you think. She stiffened. He looked down at his hands. I didn't know what love was until I saw her in that plaza. I didn't know what family meant until I sat by her hospital bed and begged whatever power existed to give her back to me. He paused, eyes gleaming. I'm not just here for you anymore, Clara. I'm here for her. Even if one day she finds out the truth, even if she calls someone else a dad on paper, I'll be there. Every school play, every scraped knee, every nightmare, every dream. Clara's tears slipped silently down her cheeks. I'm terrified she'll be confused, she whispered. Grayson reached over and took her face in his hands. Then we'll stand beside her, together, through the confusion. We don't get to choose the past, but we do get to choose the kind of love she grows up believing in. Clara leaned into him, forehead against his. And I believe in you, Grayson. A beat passed. Then she whispered, You're her real father in every way that counts. And for the first time since the man had appeared, the ache in Grayson's chest began to ease. Not gone, not erased, but carried, together. It was supposed to be a normal Sunday. Clara was at a book club brunch across town. Grayson had insisted on spending the day with Ella, just the 2 of them. Central Park, ice cream, a puppet show near Bethesda Terrace. Ella was in heaven. She wore a pink tutu, matching sneakers, and a sparkly headband. Grayson had no idea how to braid hair, but she let him try anyway. His attempt was a disaster. She called it Princess Chaos Braid, and he laughed until his stomach hurt. As the afternoon wore on, Grayson suggested they swing by the Wolf Tech Community Center, a site he'd funded in Brooklyn, where kids could learn tech, music, and arts for free. He wanted Ella to see what he built. She wanted to see the vending machine. Just 1 gummy bear pack, pleasey, she begged, batting her lashes dramatically. You're a little too good at that, Grayson muttered, pulling out his wallet. He never saw it coming. The hallway behind them, lined with storage rooms and cleaning supplies, suddenly filled with smoke. Then, a muffled boom. The fire alarm blared. A distant voice shouted, "Evacuate the building!" In an instant, chaos erupted. People ran. Doors slammed. Smoke thickened. Ella clutched his hand. "Daddy?" she whimpered. He froze. She called him Daddy. Not Grayson. Not Mr. Wolf. Not Mommy's friend. Daddy. Another explosion echoed down the hall. Flames licked along the far wall. A pipe burst. The exit was blocked. Grayson scooped Ella into his arms. "It's okay," he said, voice firm. "I've got you. I won't let go." She buried her face in his neck. He bolted toward the back stairwell. Smoke was everywhere. Coughing, gasping, screams below. Ella sobbed. "Daddy, I'm scared." "I know, baby. Just hold on to me." The hallway was a furnace now. Grayson yanked open the emergency door, found the stairs clear, and flew down 3 flights in seconds, every muscle burning, lungs choking. When they reached the lobby, firefighters were already storming the building. A medic rushed over. "Is she okay?" "She's breathing," Grayson rasped, his voice nearly gone. "Get her checked." He collapsed to his knees on the sidewalk, clutching Ella like a lifeline. Clara's voice rang from down the street. "Ella!" She sprinted across the pavement, face pale, heels flying. Grayson looked up, still on his knees, smoke on his face and his suit blackened with soot. "She's okay," he said, handing her over, shaking. "She's okay." Clara sobbed, holding Ella close, then looking at him. "You saved her." "She saved me," Grayson whispered. That night, after warm baths and cool cloths, Ella curled into her bed with a coloring book and a popsicle. "Can I call him Daddy now?" she asked Clara softly. Clara's heart clenched. "Sweetheart, why do you want to?" "Because he never runs away when I'm scared," Ella whispered. "He runs toward me." Clara pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Then yes," she said, "he's always been your daddy." Ella smiled. And just outside the door, Grayson stood, heart split wide open, the word Daddy ringing in his ears like the sweetest song he'd ever heard. The letter came in a crisp white envelope, sealed with a red wax stamp, and delivered to Clara's door by a man in a suit who didn't say a word. Clara opened it with trembling fingers. She didn't even finish the first sentence before her legs gave out, and she sank onto the kitchen floor. Grayson rushed to her, prying the letter from her hands and scanning the words. Notice of petition for paternity establishment and partial custody. Petitioner, Reynold Daxon. The above-named individual seeks to establish legal rights and biological paternity to the minor child Ella Daxon, presently residing with her mother, Clara Rose Bennett, and her mother's legal partner, Grayson James Wolf. Grayson's throat went dry. "Partial custody?" he whispered. Clara nodded, too stunned to speak. She felt like the air had been sucked out of her lungs. "He wants shared visitation," she finally whispered. "He wants weekends, holidays, time alone." Grayson's eyes darkened. "Over my dead body." That night, their lawyer, a steely woman named Melina Vargas, sat at their dining table, flipping through the paperwork. "He's not just filing for rights. He's demanding a DNA test and claiming you blocked him from his child's life." Clara looked sick. "He's lying. He disappeared. I had to go through court just to keep him away." "And those records will help," Melina assured. "But we need to prepare Ella. If this goes to court, she might be asked to talk to a child psychologist, maybe even a judge." Grayson's fist clenched. "She's 6. She shouldn't even know this man's name." "I agree," Melina said. "But the court doesn't operate on emotion. It operates on proof." "And DNA." Melina nodded. "The test will be ordered, and unless he fails spectacularly, the court may grant him limited visitation while we fight." Clara broke down then. I can't let that man near her. He's poison. He'll confuse her, scare her." Grayson knelt beside her, lifting her chin. "Look at me," he said softly. "You won't fight this alone. But he's her biological father." "I don't care. Tears burned her eyes. What if the court does? Grayson was silent for a beat. Then I'll adopt her. I'll fight for her. I'll prove to that judge what we all know already. Biology might have made her, but love raised her. A week later, the DNA test was conducted in a sterile lab. Reynold Daxon stood smugly beside his lawyer, grinning like he'd already won. Grayson didn't flinch. He held Ella's hand, whispering to her through the entire thing, never once letting her see how badly his heart was breaking. Later that night, when she was asleep, he stared at her little glass slipper charm. I'd give up everything, he whispered to Clara. Everything I own, everything I built, just to make sure she doesn't cry one more tear. Clara leaned into him. She's going to see what real fathers are made of, she said, and so is that judge. The courtroom was cold. Not physically, but emotionally. Everything was beige and wood and silent, like grief pretending to be justice. Grayson sat beside Clara at the petitioner's table, jaw tight, suit immaculate. He looked every inch the polished CEO, but inside he was trembling. Across the aisle sat Reynold Daxon, sharp in a navy blazer and a smirk that reeked of entitlement. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her late 60s, tapped her pen slowly as the DNA results were submitted into record. She read aloud. It is confirmed with 99.98% certainty that the petitioner, Reynold Daxon, is the biological father of the minor child, Ella Bennett. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Clara gripped the edge of her seat. Grayson looked down. Reynold leaned back with a smug smile. Then the judge continued, but legal paternity is not solely determined by biology. She turned to the child psychologist seated to her right. Dr. Lim, you spent time with the child, yes? The doctor nodded. 4 sessions. And do you believe Ella understands who her biological father is? Yes, Your Honor, the doctor said. We explained the terms using child-appropriate language. Was she confused? Dr. Lim paused. She was quiet, but not confused. She asked one question after I explained. The judge leaned forward. And what was the question? Dr. Lim looked over at Clara, then at Grayson. She said, if that man is my real dad, then what is Mr. Grayson? Because he's the one who stayed. The room fell silent. Not a breath. Not a rustle of paper. Grayson closed his eyes, his hand trembling over his heart. And what did you reply? The judge asked. I asked her what she thought. Dr. Lim's voice softened. She said, Mr. Grayson is my forever dad, because he makes me feel safe even when he's mad, because he came to my play when Mommy was sick, because he holds my hand when I'm scared of thunder, because he calls me supernova when I cry and tells me I'm bigger than the sky. Clara burst into quiet tears. Grayson bowed his head. The judge didn't flinch, but something in her expression melted, barely. Thank you, doctor. Then she turned her gaze to Reynold. You've claimed your rights, but tell me, when was the last time you bought your daughter a birthday cake? Taught her to ride a bike? Sat beside her when she was sick? Reynold stuttered. I didn't know about her for most of those years. Yet you're asking for weekends and holidays, the judge cut in. For a child you've never truly met. Why now? I'm her father, he snapped. No, Grayson said quietly, rising to his feet. You're her donor. I'm her dad. The courtroom held its breath. Clara stood too, her voice trembling. She doesn't need someone who wants her out of guilt or ego. She needs someone who never left. The judge raised her hand. Enough. A long pause. Then she spoke. This court acknowledges the biological connection between Mr. Daxon and the minor child. However, in the best interest of the child, full legal custody remains with Clara Bennett, with guardianship extended to Grayson Wolfe, based on the strength of his parental bond. Reynold lurched up. You can't! I can, the judge snapped. And I just did. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. But inside the limousine, Ella was playing with a paper crown someone had given her. Grayson slid in beside her. Hey, Supernova. "Hi, Daddy," she said brightly, handing him the crown. "You can be the king today." He laughed softly. "You sure?" "Yeah," she said, "because you already saved the kingdom." Clara's hand slipped into his. And as the city blurred past the tinted glass, Grayson Wolf, CEO, billionaire, titan of tech, realized he had never been richer in his life. 1 year later, the sun warmed the steps of the brownstone in the heart of Brooklyn Heights. A garden bloomed along the railing. Tulips, wild daisies, and tiny white roses Ella had picked out herself. Inside, laughter floated through the open windows. Ella was in the kitchen, frosting cupcakes with an intensity usually reserved for rocket science. Grayson wore an apron that said, #1 Dad, a gift from Father's Day last month. His tie was smeared with icing. His smile was tired, but real. Clara stood at the kitchen island, reading aloud from a handwritten card. "Dear Mr. Wolf, I'm writing to confirm that your petition for adoption has been finalized and approved by the state. As of today, Ella Rose Wolf is legally your daughter. Congratulations, Dad." Tears shimmered in Grayson's eyes. He didn't say a word, just walked around the island, pulled Clara into his arms, and held her for a long time. Ella looked up from her cupcake. "Why are you crying, Daddy?" He knelt. "I'm not crying," he whispered. "I'm just really, really happy." She frowned. "Is that like when you laugh so hard you pee a little?" Clara choked on her tea. Grayson laughed through his tears. "Exactly like that." That afternoon, friends and family gathered in Prospect Park for a quiet adoption celebration. And no press, no shareholders, no billion-dollar deals. Just Ella, Clara, Grayson, laughter. It took love. At sunset, Ella stood on a picnic bench, wearing a crown made of glitter paper and pipe cleaners. She cleared her throat dramatically. "Oh, ladies and gentle people, I just want to say, my daddy is the best daddy ever. He smells like coffee, he reads The Little Prince with voices, and he makes up new verses to let it go, just to annoy Mommy." Everyone laughed. She went on, "And I know he didn't make me with science or belly stuff or whatever, but he made me feel like magic. Every day. And that's better than blood." Grayson's heart nearly gave out right there. Clara slipped her hand into his. "She's your daughter," she said, "in every way that matters." He kissed her temple. "And you," he said, voice hoarse, "are my Cinderella." She smiled. "I wasn't looking for a prince," she whispered. "Good," he said, "because I'm not one." She looked up at him. "No," she said, "you're better. You're ours." That night, as Ella slept between them after too much cake and laughter, Grayson stared at the ceiling, fingers tracing the little star stickers she'd insisted they put above the bed. He thought of the man he used to be, lonely in glass towers, chasing numbers, haunted by empty penthouses. And he thought of now, of her, of them, of a love that didn't come easy, but came true. "Thank you," he whispered into the dark. Clara stirred beside him. "For what?" "For the night I thought would end at midnight," he murmured, "and for the morning that lasted forever." If this story touched your heart, if you felt the tears, the hope, the healing, if you rooted for Clara, Ella, and Grayson like they were your own, if this journey reminded you that love isn't about blood, but about staying, showing up, and choosing each other every single day, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter, stories that heal, stories that remind us we're not alone, stories that say, you are worthy of love, even after the clock strikes midnight. One like, one share, one follow means the world. Let's keep this magic going. Subscribe now and never miss the next chapter of love, resilience, and redemption.